A few weeks ago, I made a video about me crying over heroes I thought were busted. And when I said Jeff was unkillable, the comments exploded with angry Jeff players calling me delusional for even considering Jeff being strong. So today, I'm going to be breaking down exactly why pre-rework Jeff was the closest thing to terrorism in the game, and why his rework was absolutely necessary. Pre-rework Jeff was a dumpster fire of a support, although it wasn't because he had a bad kit, it was actually the meta he was in. Season 0 through 1 was dominated by triple support meta, and if you played during this time, you will know how miserable it was. But for those who didn't, it was basically like sitting through all 8 seasons of Big Mouth, all condensed into 36 seconds. This meta revolved around support ultimates that had a lot of healing and just lasted so long. It got so bad to the point where a whole team of top 500 players couldn't actually kill a support on point because it's like they entered creative mode. So what does any of this have to do with Jeff? Well, just like with Elon, Jeff was missing something to make him meta. He was one of the 3 out of 8 supports not blessed with one of these immortality ultimates. And being down 12 seconds of immortality immediately lost you the game. But his kit was actually good. I mean, it was too good. Jeff's primary attack, Joyful Splash, was and still is the highest healing support attack in the game. 150 healing a second. The best part about it is that it pierces, meaning you could heal for 300 health a second if both tanks lined up. Pair this up with Jeff's E, healing bubble, giving a speed boost, and a burst of healing of 85, which ain't a lot, but he had 6 of them. And there was no chance your tanks were gonna fall over. Although he did have the best healing in the game, his horrible ultimate just sentenced him to the losers table. His ultimate, It's Jeff, lets Jeff cast a 10-meter radius, where then he proceeds to guzzle up all enemies, including allies. Then for 6 seconds, he goes into his hide and seek state, damaging enemies and healing allies, until he decides to spit them out or the timer runs out. I've been hyping this ultimate to be the second coming of the Marvels. But to say it's the worst ultimate is just a straight up lie. Even if it's not as good as the Immortality support ultimate, it actually counters those ultimates pretty good. Even though everybody and their grandmothers has the unstoppable effect in their kit, a good Jeff will always wait until the enemy uses all their abilities to wipe their team. But then again, this doesn't change the fact that his ultimate is still a major gamble to use, compared to Luna just hitting the floss. This explains why Jeff has such a low pick rate. He does have the best healing in the game, sure, but it's also not like Luna or Invisible Woman were struggling to keep up on healing. And since those supports had enough healing in their kits to keep up a team alive in the neutral game, not including there was 3 of them, and just had better ultimates, there was just no good reason to pick Jeff. At least as a support. In Season 1.5 is when the support nerfing of 25 happened. Nerfing immortality support ultimates by literally adding inflation to ultimates, meaning we were all freed from the endless voice lines and keeping up with the support ultimate economy, and life was good. Until a forbidden technique was born. This was about the time where people started to discover Jeff's true calling. People still didn't use Jeff as a support because immortality ults were still good. They just took like 5 seconds longer to get, and still way better than Jeff's ultimate. So people discovered other ways to use Jeff, mainly using him to flank the enemy supports and either take one of them out or cause enough chaos to where somebody messes up and dies. Just right click, Aqua Burst. Let's just spit balls of water at his opponents, dealing 40 damage in a 3-meter radius and extra damage if it was impact. You'd have to be playing with a blindfold to miss shots. These things were massive. and if you somehow manage to miss slightly, you still did 40 damage with the AoE. If you hit an impact shot, then hit an enemy with the AoE, that's 100 damage a second, which for a DPS is pretty bad. But that doesn't take into account how easy it is to hit your shots, because at least with Hela, you have to be 10% good and 90% mouth breather to be able to hit your shots. With Jeff, you look at their general vicinity and it's like shooting Seeking missiles. And since he could give the Hulk 2 a business from range, it was hard to punish him for it. At least when Black Panther dives, he has to get into melee range, making it way harder to get away, while Jeff could sit at China and still harass the supports. Every time I played Midtown, I felt like I was just gonna be JFK'd while pushing the cart. So Jeff having range makes him better than most dive DPS. This is still not the reason why he was so busted. His survivability was unbelievably strong. I mean, he could be in the center of the enemy team and still leave with full HP. Jeff's shift, hide and seek, puts Jeff into the ground with the only thing sticking out is his fin, giving him not only the smallest hitbox in the game, but also healing, a speed boost, and makes him unstunnable. Oh, did I leave out the fact that you could use his ability forever and whenever you wanted, instantly? I honestly don't know how this ability made it so far in the game's life cycle without people realizing how broken it is. Pair this up with his 6 burst healing bubbles, and this guy was like a playable support ultimate, and people defended this. Jeff had unlimited resources to heal himself. There was no possible way Jeff could lose a 1v1. The only way Jeff could die was something like a Magneto ultimate, or if you were just recently lobotomized. Jeff's kit was made to counter dive because he was slippery and impossible to kill, but people started exploiting this, using his asteroid-sized projectiles to start assassinating supports left and right. So take into account that nobody could catch him, and if anybody tried to fight him, he just used one of his 13 abilities to bring him back to full health and go straight back to shooting. Hella headshot you? Just one bubble and you're good as new. What's that? Bucky's trying to stop you? Hide him with your hide and seek. Sans rolls up after your genocide? Just assassinate him too. If the whole character roster shows up, bubble yourself, go into hide and seek mode, because Jeff also works as a NASCAR. Jeff players could just infinitely spam their healing and their free escape abilities as much as they wanted, because the cooldowns are more non-existent than my father is. It didn't matter if the enemy team shot back at the Jeff. He could non-stop keep applying pressure because he had every bubble, every medkit, and all the Sydney Sweeney bass soap he could ever need to keep him going. And if somehow a Jeff was so horrendous to the point where he runs out of bubbles, he could just start swimming on walls with the smallest hitbox until he was back at full health. And the second you gave up and turned around, that Jeff would come out to shoot you, and you knew that guy had a eating grin when he was doing it. But considering I could probably teach a gorilla to reach top 500 as DPS Jeff, why did he have such a low win rate? The reason is actually pretty obvious. Take a look at the standard team comp. 2-2-2. 2 tanks, 2 DPS, and 2 supports. This is the universal team composition most players try to go for. But you always have the option to mix it up though. But you at least wanted one of each role in your team. Except for support. They are special. You bare minimum need 2 supports for your team to stay alive. Some of you well-educated gamers may have guessed it by now, but I may need to spell it out a bit more. It also greatly matters who those 2 supports are. Let's say you and the enemy team have the same tank and DPS characters. Then let's say both of you have a Luna Snow. The only difference in your team comps is that you have a DPS Jeff and they have a Loki. Did you catch it? If one of your 2 supports is a DPS Jeff, then you don't have 2 supports now, do you? Marvel Rivals just has so many broken abilities that one support can't physically keep 5 ranked teammates alive.
But without DPS Jeff causing such a mayhem in the backline, that's gonna cost him at least one support.
Yeah, maybe for one fight, then they're just gonna go get their Captain America to manhunt your Jeff. So then your team is going to be down 1 support while the enemy team is only down 1 tank. So not only is your team going to lose a neutral game now, they will also lose when the ults start flying. I mean, it's not rocket science. Who's going to win? 12 seconds of immortality or the enemy's team 24 seconds of immortality? And let's say, best case scenario, the enemy doesn't have the counter to DPS Jeff. And Jeff comes back once in a while to keep your team up. You're still going to lose the ultimate fights. You have the advantage in the neutral game, yeah, but they will eventually send a sacrifice to distract your Jeff long enough until their team sweeps yours, because that Luna can't keep a whole team up for that long. You could only use this strategy when your team had triple support, because at that point, you have a normal team comp. And once you have that, your supports only have to worry about keeping 3 players alive. 4 if you count the other support, because Jeff could just keep himself up. And when you meet these requirements is where the monstrous advantage comes from, because now your team could hold out long enough until Jeff out-sustains or outmaneuvers whoever is sent to chase him. And once he kills them or loses them, he could start harassing the enemy backlane once more to win the game. My theory here is, when people see 2 supports on their team and think,
Okay, well, we got 2 supports there. That means I can play my favorite character, Spider-Man.
and a lot of low elo players don't understand why you need an extra healer when there's already a perfectly good Jeff on their team. So they won't even realize they are DPS Jeff. So it's the job of the DPS Jeff to tell his team that he's going to DPS and not heal them. Otherwise, you're just going to lose. Since DPS Jeff ain't around anymore, I can't really show how much teams actually played around DPS Jeff, so I had to watch old videos from this DPS Jeff main called Raven SPCR. And what do you know? His teammates got angry at him for not healing them when he is in the enemy backline the whole game, leaving his other support to heal a whole team and eventually dying because they're not getting healed themselves, leaving the rest of the team powerless. And then this guy makes 2 streams crying about the Jeff knows are gonna kill Jeff and Jeff doesn't have that much survivability. Then has the chutzpah to say Loki is unkillable? Like, bro, these guys aren't real. So if you guys want to see a video about me breaking down these horrible takes from 4 Jeff mains, let me know. Back on topic. Dedicating a bunch of games to try to master DPS Jeff was a huge gamble, because if you fail to realize that once the devs found out there's a support who is just going out to DPS and stand in the middle of the whole enemy team and still not die, and actually believe they wouldn't get a massive nerf, you probably don't make good choices in life. It was pretty obvious that the devs were gonna change Jeff one way or another. So why invest so much time in a strategy that's going to get patched anyways?
Give me your loot, fat boy. Bite me.
Bro, the way these Jeff fans were describing Jeff's rework, you would think they changed Jeff the Land Shark into Jeff the Blobfish. I mean, these clans were throwing around terms like
The god of them.
and saying things like, this isn't even the same character anymore. You would imagine that the devs removed half his kit, but nope. His kit is exactly the same. All they did was put cooldowns on his abilities, so he can't just infinitely smash his face onto his keyboard and get away with it. Aqua Burst became an ability, but is now 3 charges on a 3-second cooldown, with slightly more damage. Hide and Seek now has a resource meter, so you can't just infinitely get away for bad positioning. Healing Bubble got its charges reduced by half and no longer burst heals. Instead, it heals more but over time. Joyful Splash healing was reduced, but it gained a respectable amount of damage. And finally, his ultimate. It gained the ability to give allies bonus health when they are overflowing, but in turn, got a little bit more expensive. I also didn't mention his passive, which used to reduce headshot damage by 50%, which is now increased to 70%. When all is said and done, this is by definition a fantastic rework. It fixed Jeff's infinite sustain and forced Jeff players to actually support their teams. No matter how many people cry about how they want DPS Jeff back, a support should not be flanking in the backline of the enemy team. They are not there to frag out, supports are there to help their team survive, and the devs realized this and acted accordingly. But I have seen a lot of Jeff mains complaining on YouTube and even in my comments about how they are never going to play Jeff or buy his skins until they revert his rework, cause quote, Jeff is a boring heal bot. Well, if you feel that way, go play an actual DPS. The fact that you don't want to play a support character because you are forced to heal now tells me you were never healing in the first place. Spoiler alert, every good support in the game requires you to be a heal bot. Adam, Ultron, and Mantis either have mid support ultimates or just lack in healing, or maybe even both. In the case of Jeff, he is still undoubtedly the best healer in the game, even with the healing nerfs, which was valid since bro literally healed as much as a Mantis ult. Unfortunately, his broken kit will never be good in this meta, because immortality is just way too good compared to Jeff's ability to guzzle up glizzies. Or so I thought. Jeff got a new team up with Storm, where when Storm activates her ult, Jeff now has the option to fuse with her, expanding the duration of the Storm ult and only taking about a second of being in the Jeff NATO to swallow up enemies, completely countering all immortality support ultimates. Taking a gamble of an ultimate like it's Jeff and making it into a guaranteed teamfight win is exactly what Jeff needed to be meta. With this team up, he is now a must run, being able to survive dive easily and now has a good ultimate, and Storm is permanently banned. I mean, if they did something else like this with Jeff's ultimate, he will have the best support kit in the game. Maybe not to the level of Jeff NATO, but something similar to help him counter immortality ultimates. Giving players more variety in their support roster will always be a good thing. And while people said this rework was going to kill Jeff, I've never seen more Jeffs in my game than in Season 2.5. And playing Rework Jeff, he felt exactly the same. Just because they nerfed Jeff's sustain doesn't mean he got gutted. He was borderline invincible, and anyone who denies it has never played against a good DPS Jeff. And in my opinion, Jeff still needs nerfs to the sustain. I can comfortably still survive a 5-man dive because of his self-healing and sheer speed. But in return, they have to move that power into his ult, because as it stands now, that's the only thing keeping Jeff from being the best support in the game. So don't get me wrong, if you still pick Jeff, you are trolling. Jeff is still such a horrible pick, because for every healing Jeff does, that's less charge that goes into a Luna or an Invisible Woman's ult, which results in a loss. Unless you have Storm, of course. The only way I could ever see Jeff with a solid hit rate and win rate is if they nerfed all the other supports healing by half, so people will start picking Jeff for his insane 130 healing a second, or doing something with his ult to make it more consistent. So before I repeat myself 30 more times, I'ma have to stop it here. If I missed something, drop a comment to let me know what questions you may have. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, or else you will get my ranked teammates in your games.